Back in the days, 87. 87 was the year I came to Werribee, Weza. Yo, 87, I remember that year. Hmm. I was a young pup. I think I was around 12. Yeah. Lived in the western suburbs, Lived in Yarraville. Had my best friend live in Footscray. Yeah. Went to primary school in Footscray. Yeah, I remember those times. Good old times back in the days, in the 80s. I remember those times like it was yesterday. You know, my inner child, you know what I mean? Just still remember those times watching Saturday cartoons, you know, in the morning, waking up, watching Transformers and watching all that, amazing. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, I remember all that times. 87 was the year I came to Werribee. Yeah, I remember that coming in here in the house. We didn't even have carpet. Didn't, I mean, it was just like, fire, man. People used to say, Werribee, you know, far out, man. There was like hardly nothing out here. It was like just full on country and, oh my gosh, I remember those times, man. Yeah, had a few bit of bad luck, you know. Had this beautiful BMX bike. It was awesome, you know. Left it outside, you know. And I had a beautiful dog, this beautiful dog. Used to call him Perito. Yeah, I remember that. God bless him, rest in peace, you know. Had a really bad luck. I remember when he passed away, he died, and then my BMX got stolen at the same day. And I remember those times, man, I was just thinking, far out, man. You know what I mean? Getting picked by the Aussies. I remember that, getting always bullied by the Aussies and stuff. Had an Aussie friend too. He was really good. Back in '87, hanged around, with him and always getting in trouble and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty funny, those times. He used to stick up for me because a lot of Aussies used to pick on me. You know what I mean? So he was cool. But yeah, a lot of kind of bias stuff used to happen back in those times. Yeah. But 87 was the year I came to Werribee. I remember that those times. I remember those times like it was yesterday. Yeah, I remember that. Mum and dad working hard, trying to survive, doing a lot, on the grind. Me going to school, struggling. You know, I was catching the train still. That was like coming to Werribee up there in the western suburbs. It was a full on, really bad. Just couldn't do good in school and stuff. And it was a struggle, you know what I mean? Just, you know. But, you know, still kept my cool, still do what I gotta do to survive. You know, even though I was a fool in school and just, but hip hop was there. I remember hip hop. Yeah, a lot of, listening to Cypress Hill and Public Enemy, Eazy-E and WA, Ice-T, Original Gangster. I remember going to Werribee Plaza back in the days. That was like in the 80s. I bought the Original Gangster, you know, VCR, yeah, VJ cassette of Original Gangster of Ice-T. It was like, that was amazing. That was awesome. That was pretty cool. And I bought Rhyme Page, you know, on cassette tape. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, I remember that Insanity. They used to have Sanity here back in where back in those times it was like crazy. it was just like, it was funny, man, because it was like white people would just always watch you, you know what I mean? Because you're the kind of brown person there sometimes, it was like, I mean, there was, it was, yeah, it's a culture shock, because, was at the western suburbs, in Footscray and all of that, and it was just, multicultural. But when it came to Werribee, I was like, wow, it was just like, it was like culture shock. I never saw so many, um, you know, white people, man. Yeah, yeah, but anyway, you know what I mean? It's just a bit different now, Werribee's changed, multicultural, pretty cool. But I still remember those times back in the days, just 87. That's around where I think, Commodore 64 was out, Yeah, remember that, and yeah, it was pretty awesome back in those times, it was just a lot of great, beautiful memories, you still remember those times. A lot of struggles now and then, had a bit of struggles. But I always had, hip hop music, listen to Public Enemy, my parents had a bit of, problems with neighbors because they were a bit biased and stuff. But it was all good, you know what I mean? Which, it was all right, we were just, good people trying to, maintain and keep it good here, you know. But I was just, it was very hard to, because you know, Footscray was just really awesome, that's why I go for the Western Bulldogs, you know what I mean? you know, I remember those times, Franco Cozzo and all that, Footscray, that was pretty awesome, Great memories, I really love that, Appreciate those moments, Sometimes we forget stuff like that. Yeah. But anyway, I gotta bust a crazy rap, put it down like that. But at times I put it down with that energy, that source, that mentality. Gotta create something, I got inspired by a DVD, called The Art of Rap. The Art of Freestyle, really good freestyle, DVD. Pretty awesome, But I remember back in the days, 87 in Werribee, was just so amazing. Just those times. I remember I used to be sleeping and I could hear a cow, you know what I mean? It was just a cow, and it was like, once a horse went past, and I was like, what horse, It's just, I remember those times. I was like, so amazing, man. It's just, there was this girl that I was seeing. She came, I brought her to Werribee, and she's like, where you live in the middle of nowhere? Because she used to live in St Albans and those areas over there, just because because I used to live in Yarraville, in those times. But when I came to Werribee, most of my friends would be like, you know, Werribee, far out, mate. That's like a middle of nowhere or something. Yeah, remember those times. Hmm. Yeah, but anyway, just 87 back in those times, just it was pretty awesome, just remember those times and just appreciate it. It's just a bit different right now, Werribee, it's just, yeah. Mm. But anyway, I just want to put it down like that, deep inside mentalities, every day we got to keep on, maintaining in these crazy days, trying to keep it Aussie rules now and then, still acknowledge, the First Nations, Yeah, because I was born in, Chile, South America, came to Australia when I was 4 months. Yeah, so I was just a baby, man. Fire. Damn. Mm, all right. But anyway, gotta keep it moving on, stand strong for more these hectic times as I put it down with the true essence and blessings. My creativity ability gives me the energy to rise up. Sometimes this I'm just like the solo man. You know what I mean? Yeah, So I got a bit of a little flu and stuff, Got a cold hanging around too much out there. catching something, had to get out of the house and stuff sometimes, But anyway, still got to maintain to keep it moving on. 87 back in the days, and I remember those times like it was yesterday. I remember those times. Wow, that's, yeah. Yeah, I just want to say rest in peace to LB. You know, there's a lot of people who have been gone, coming and going, It's just, hmm, far out, just, so, wow, 49 years old, far out. Nearly in my 50s, you know, you know, far. Pretty awesome, It's just, I've been going through some crazy stuff lately, man. I'm really just full on, It's just really hitting you, but, just, thank you to God, just rebuilds you back, It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, You know, hip hop, man. Oh, I don't know, I just love that culture, hip hop. Just so amazing back in those times. But anyway, peace, much love, and take it easy. You know, and yeah, 5-7. I remember those times in '87 coming here to the Werribee back in those times, and it was pretty awesome those times. Yo, peace.